What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield holding it down for us in the DraftKings Boston studio. We are brought to you by Wrangler, made for the ride of life. Save 50% on your first Wrangler.com order with promo code GOJO15. Got a great show for you guys, as always. Download, subscribe, rate, review. Leave us that 5-star rating. And check us out live here Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on DraftKings YouTube, DraftKingsNetwork.com, and Samsung TV Plus. Jason Fitz from Yahoo Sports, our former ESPN colleague, going to be joining us here in the 9 o'clock hour. Excited to talk to him in his high-pitched voice about a little bit of everything, because, Dad, we got a little bit of everything happening all of the time as we are almost there. We are sitting on a Notre Dame campus that we were walking around yesterday is absolutely juiced for this Ohio State game. We got plenty of NFL action coming off last night. It's all happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, it is the epicenter of the universe continues to be football, and this is one of the better weekends of it. Started last night. We'll get to that game, San Francisco and the Giants. But you're right. I mean, sitting here on campus, game day here again, Notre Dame and Ohio State matchup Saturday night, but there's 6 ranked ranks, as we've talked about, and then the unranked Clemson against a ranked Florida State. There's a ton going on. This is a football dream. This is one where, how do you get out of your chores? Because a lot of times you would do what you had to do on Saturday, because while you're going to sit and watch college football, it's a little more intermittent. It's not like you have to sit down on Sunday and watch the Red Zone channel with Chris Hansen, where you're kind of
Scott Hansen.
I'm sorry.
Watching it with Chris Hansen would mean your Sunday is going very differently.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I would agree with that. With Scott Hansen and knowing exactly what he is, what he's bringing and what you're sitting around for. College, you can do it a little more, like I said, intermittently. So you can get your chores done. Not this week. This week, it starts at noon with Florida State and Clemson. It goes all the way until 10, 11 o'clock at night. It's even longer than NFL. So are you doing the chores today? Are you doing any kind of list you got today? How are you getting out of it? Are you just saying, I'm not doing anything Saturday and Sunday, I'll make up for it during the week? I mean, you got to have a plan.
I think I saw a viral video of a guy who basically just handed a doctor's note to his significant other and said that, you know, he cannot be expected to complete any tasks this weekend or will not be available during football season. I think he even
was the whole season. He
blanketing one for the season. So I would recommend just brutal honesty there. Be like, listen, you saw what happened last weekend would be my pitch. They're not all going to be like this.
Right.
Sometimes we're going to get weekends full of slop, and I will double down on that. I will be the best Monday through Friday significant other humanly possible. And when it gets to the weekend, then I just need to lock it in for this one because it's special and different from all the others. And that we got to treat it that way.
What do you do if you have a kid something, though? You got a 4-year-old neighbor kid birthday party.
That's what I feel like. And the other parents in the chat can correct me if I'm wrong here. We talked to Diana Rossini yesterday, who said drinking is the way that you overcome a lot of kids' parties. Jesse, I feel like this is where you have to rely on how well you've helped pick your kids' friends' parents, because I've heard of a lot of parents who will show up all to the same youth sporting event, and you kind of know someone's got the cooler, someone's got the music, you got the things that are going to get you through it. I feel like you got to know in your friend group who the parents are that are also invested in this, so they can have the TV queued up, they can have it on in the background and make sure everyone else is taken care of while the kids do their thing.
That's absolutely what has to happen. You have to be in agreement about these things. Maybe you have a side group chat going that's different from the group chat for the event. Just making sure that we're all on the same page. When it really comes down to it being tough is when For example, in my house, I can't drink right now because I'm pregnant, but I do have a small child, so I can't even drink to get through it. But then the other thing that I have going for me is that my husband doesn't care about sports at all. Doesn't watch football, he couldn't name a college football coach if you had a gun to his head.
Wow.
See, and that's why Jesse's point about the side group chat, because I'm sure you're going to have parents in your friend group because the kid ultimately picks their friends. You don't really have control over all the parents brought into your life, but you kind of know which ones you actually vibe with. I'm sure you guys went through that plenty at some point. You didn't have group texting back then. You had to send a carrier pigeon, but with the group chat, you can get the down parents in and make sure that they're taken care of and they're ready to go in on the same.
So here's the worst one. We're talking about a kid event that's usually at someone's house. You can go inside and watch their TV or something, do that. And this is, to your point, a terroristic act. Who has a wedding during football season? What if you have a wedding to go to tonight, tonight, or on Saturday, tomorrow, during the day, and then the reception at night? And the place that is having the reception doesn't have a TV. I mean, then you're you have some work cut out.
Well, that's when you see people with their phones like propped up against their water glass, like just watching that instead of the speeches or something.
See, and that's where I feel like, Dad, we have such a decided advantage over your generation, because before you guys would have to like wheel in a television and actually physically bring one in there. Now we all got little TVs right here in our pocket. So you're just going to see a bunch of guests at the reception that are a little bit less interested in here. And I've seen it go plenty of ways. I've seen like couples get married who know, hey, we know we were getting married on a Saturday in the fall. It's the only time we can make this venue work and get together with grandma or whatever else. And so they brought televisions into the reception. They leaned all the way in on that. I think we've evolved that idea of the fall wedding into something maybe a little more manageable. But for everyone, if you got challenges coming up this weekend, it's on you. Because if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. And then you only have the person in the mirror to blame on that one. So get ready. Start to do your homework now. We had good practice last night, Thursday night, leading into a big weekend. You might have stuff going on. And if you did, you would have missed what actually was a more compelling football game for a lot longer than you or I expected. The San Francisco 49ers win 30-12, Dad, and pull away at the end. They end up covering. But for the majority of this game, it was a one-score game, and something just felt kind of off for a 49ers offense that was down Brandon Ayuk, but we didn't think would suffer that much because of it.
No, couldn't get a lot of the running game going. Brock Purdy was off in his throws. I mean, got actually saved from his teammates by a couple of interceptions by knocking the ball down, and he got his feet under him in the second half. But to your point, it's a 17-6 game at halftime. San Francisco gets a touchdown, but then the Giants get a field goal before half, and okay, it's kind of close to you thinking, all right, where's it going to start in the second half? And it's with the Giants getting a touchdown. Now it's 17-12, so this definitely is a close game, and they even held San Francisco after that to 2 field goals. They didn't let them score touchdowns to pull it too far away, so it's 20-12. You're still within 1 score, then it's 23-12. It's starting to kind of go on you. And then Purdy throws that beautiful pass, I believe it was to Deebo Samuel for the final touchdown, the nail in the coffin. And in all honesty, as it started getting to that point, the Giants just don't have an answer. They just don't have an answer. The Giants had 150 total yards in this game. The Giants ran 46 plays to San Francisco's 78 plays. The 49ers basically doubled them up in time of possession and had over 400 yards of total offense. So stat shows it was a blowout, and the final score it was a 10-point spread in the books. They win by 18, so they covered that easily. But as we've just been talking about, in the third quarter, this was a one-score game.
Yeah, it was. And I want to give the 49ers credit. You still found a way, right? Even on a night that was by absolutely anyone with eyes that watched that game saw that was not the best Brock Purdy game.
It was not.
And yet Brock Purdy got blitzed on 74% of his dropbacks in this game. And in that game, had 236 yards against the blitz. They were the most by a passer since Aaron Rodgers last year. And so that's the power of the 49ers machine. And it's why Kyle Shanahan company after refused to apologize for being 3-0.
Real happy to be 3-0 right now. It's, it's really cool to do it after a Thursday night game. There's not many times in the NFL where you get to enjoy a win more than just that night. So it's always cool when you win on Thursdays. I told the guys, if they want to win and have a weekend off, we got to earn it. And those guys did, and now you can sit back and relax a little bit, kind of enjoy how these last 3 weeks have gone, and be ready to go on Monday.
3-0 right now. It feels good. We harped on, starting off fast, and that's what we're doing. Even though we're making a little bit more mistakes, but as long as we get the win, we can continue to grow and continue to build on not making as many mistakes.
For us, we know what we can do. We expect to win every game, and the fact that we're 3-0 is awesome. We know it's a long season, and there's still so much football left. And so I love the mentality of our team right now, because I think we're 3-0, we're happy, but we're still hungry, and there's still a lot that we can get better at, and that's a good place to be.
By the way, when Kyle Shanahan was talking, that's when I was listening, because that's what players listen for. The goal is you win, you get the weekend off, right? Because later in the season, there would be times where you win on Sunday, it's like, see you Wednesday.
Yeah.
No film or lifting on Monday. Your day off is Tuesday, and then you show
doggy bone.
Yeah, exactly. You get to show up on Wednesday. I mean, you live for that without a doubt. So now they have all these days off. And as you said, it wasn't the prettiest in the world, but this also is in college. You're not, there's not an AP poll, and at the end of the day, there's not a 13-person committee deciding who makes the playoffs. You get the win and you take it. Like last week, when Mike Tomlin said, I'm not going to ever apologize for a win, you take that win. And it wasn't the prettiest in the world, but they pulled away. They're a far better team than the Giants. The Giants are a struggling team, and they were down 4 starters, 3 on offense to boot. So for them even having to get a 1-score game in the third quarter was a little surprising to me. I don't know if I ever felt like San Francisco was going to be threatened in this one, or if they were going to be able to come back in this one. But it wasn't a bad showing. And to put a number to your percentage of blitzes, 33 of the 39 dropbacks.
Yeah.
Purdy was blitzed. That's Wink Martindale too. I mean, he is a pressure burst pipes guy. He wants to send pressure after you.
And if you're looking for positives on both sides, because I actually think this game, because we knew the 49ers are just in a different weight class in the NFL than the Giants are right now. The Giants are at a different stage in their team building. And so I think each of these teams, you're grading on a different curve going into this game. For the 49ers, without Brandon Ayuk, who since the start of last season is 8th in the NFL in catches and 9th in the NFL in yards against man coverage. Nobody in the 49ers consistently beats man, which you see a lot when you're getting blitzed, as well as Brandon Ayuk does. Their downfield passing game suffered without him on the field. Now, it only suffered so much, but it suffered some in that game. Penalties, other things. You were able to overcome that and still get this kind of win. For the Giants, defense showed up a little more than it had the first couple of weeks. I was surprised watching them get pushed around by the Arizona Cardinals in week 2. And so coming back this week, you saw Leonard Williams get behind the line of scrimmage a little bit more. All of those blitzes knocking Brock Purdy a little bit more off his thing. The problem was ultimately, I thought penalties in critical moments. You gave up multiple 3rd and 10 pluses in this game, but you also some of those penalties were a little ticky-tack. They were defensive holding. Leonard Williams gets called for the roughing the passer that leads to a touchdown on that drive when he lands on the quarterback, and that one I feel for him, but that one we know by now. That's a thing that unfortunately, as much as you might disagree with it, or anyone does,
I know. It's a rule and you got to follow it.
It's a rule that's been called enough to this point. So I think for the Giants, you're at least heartened to see, hey, your defense was getting closer to home, getting closer to being disruptive. They just have to stop shooting themselves in the foot now.
I'm telling you that a disheartening thing as a defensive player is, and the Giants did this to the 49ers, you mentioned early on, got them in 3rd and long.
Yeah.
And they made the plays. They hit the plays downfield. Remember, this is a team, obviously this year, but last year as well, is the best at yards after the catch. So they're getting the ball, they're getting yards at Debo Samuel.
And Kittle.
Well, I mean,
watching them with the ball in their hands after they've
Debo
gotten
reminds me of Anquan Bolden, wide receiver from the Cardinals, like a running back after he caught the ball, and that's what Debo Samuel is as well. And so the Giants were doing what you need to do, get a team in 3rd and long, and the 49ers were just converting on it. And how about, Christian McCaffrey was traded to the 49ers last year, correct?
Yep.
So he hadn't been there all that long, right?
Yeah.
12 straight games with a touchdown. The man has been with the 49ers for a day and a half, and he's tied Jerry Rice's record for 12 straight games with a touchdown. That is ridiculous.
I do think that, as we have the best running back in the NFL conversations, his name probably needs to get brought up a little bit more than it does. I know he's in an offense that is juggernaut, has so much help for him, but if we're not going to do that for quarterbacks, I definitely don't want to do it for a running back that does as much as CMC does for that team. So, Dad, putting a bow on this one, I think we see there were encouraging signs for the Giants against an opponent that at this stage I don't think they were ever going to beat, especially with all those injuries. The more important game for them coming up now is Seattle next week. That's going to be a big one, trying to go, I believe, on the road and win a game early in the season. Thankfully, they split this road stretch. And for the 49ers, they're 3-0, and they're going to continue to work on the top end. We need to just get to one more thing in this game. How did they not throw Trent Williams out for throwing a close fist punch?
Well, I was stunned. And when you heard, so right at the end of the game, it's the old kneel down, right?
Yeah.
And one of the D linemen gets a little over aggressive. And
it was the end of the half.
I'm sorry, it's the end of the half. And Trent Williams, I mean, they were shoving each other. Then they had a close up of him. At first, I think Herbie was talking about it, said it was an open face, but it was a closed fist punch to the face.
Yeah.
And
it was a right hook.
I'm reading they're talking after the game about the people reviewing, and they're like, there was no evidence of anything. I'm like, no evidence. And listen, it wasn't a hard punch. It wasn't like a devastating punch.
But it was a punch.
But it was a punch. So he was unbelievably fortunate he didn't get tossed out of that game, and he's going to get fined. I mean, you know the old after the fact thing.
Listen, so Walt Anderson got up in front of the pool reporters after the game, senior vice president of officiating for the NFL, and he said, we ended up looking at the video available to us and didn't see anything that rose to flagrant, which is the standard we have to apply to disqualify a player. He went on to explain a flagrant is a punch. If officials look at it done with a closed fist, and the closed fist carries a different weight to it. If he's saying they didn't have enough there, how are they going to go and have any right to fine him after? Like, they had time after the game to look at this again and then said, hey, we didn't see enough to do this. If I'm Trent and I get that fine, I'm telling you,
that's appeal,
appeal that thing. Let's go.
I agree, because we see so many, because sometimes they're not called as penalties during the game, but afterward, when the league gets to look at it, all of a sudden you get that letter and that fine, and you're like, my God. But I was stunned. I thought for sure. And quite honestly, Trent Williams probably wouldn't have cared if he got tossed out of that game.
He already is so good. He looks bored in most games. I thought he was just tired of playing against this team and wanted to go get a head start in the shower,
Yeah, exactly.
Get changed and ready for the plane. By the time these guys are done, I know you can take care of business. So that was a surprising twist to a night that ultimately felt inevitable. Dad, the other bit of big NFL news from yesterday, and this was coming home yesterday after we had been out at Notre Dame's practice. I didn't realize it's going on. I'd done a hit on a Dallas radio station and actually got to do the hit with our buddy Zach Martin.
Right.
And I get off the phone and I'm feeling all good about the Cowboy stuff. And then I turn and I see on TV the news that unfortunately Cowboys star defensive back Trevon Diggs tore his ACL in practice in a non-contact situation and is now going to be out for the year, Dad. So how devastating is this? We know so many of the strengths and names on this defense, but Diggs, newly highly paid and really productive on the back end, now no longer going to be a part.
So they've got a lot of great parts on that defense. Can they still be one of the top defenses? Not the top defense, yes. Can it still help them, lead them to where they want to go? Yes. But you lose a piece like this, and they brought in Stephon Gilmore, so they had both sides covered well. Now Diggs over the years has an incredible amount of interceptions, but also gets thrown at a lot. He's kind of like that it's almost like that the baseball player who hits a home run or strikes out, right? He gets thrown at a lot. Sometimes you get a lot of yards against him, but other times he not only picks it, it's a pick six going the other way. So he has been an integral part to that defense. And anymore in practices, it's hard to believe, well, I guess any step can happen, because the new rules state you can only have padded practices 14 times during entire season, which is 18 weeks now. So you're going multiple weeks and there's some coaches that stop putting pads on after a few weeks of the season. You don't even do it anymore. So, but again, an ACL can be a wrong step. You know, it's like Travis Kelce. They were doing basically a walkthrough, you know, when he hyperextended his knee before the Thursday night game and missed it. So I guess it can happen at any time, but you rarely hear nowadays of these practice injuries that severe to knock them out.
And for the Cowboys, you had two yesterday. Tyler Biadasz, your starting center, was going to get an MRI on a hamstring that he pulled during that same practice.
It's the one thing, as we said, you can predict, you can prognosticate all the time, but that's the one thing you can never, predict is who's going to get hurt. Someone's going to get hurt. It's a matter of how bad they get hurt. And now you've lost Diggs for the season. I mean, he's a big playmaker. A huge playmaker, but they do have a number of them on that defense to still be able to get where they want to go. But man, that's a big loss.
I do agree. Ultimately, the Cowboys defense is great on every level, but they're defined by their front seven,
without
Micah Parsons and that pass rushing group. And pass rush and pass defense in the back end, inextricably linked. One will help the other. But to your point about Trevon Diggs, according to NFL Next Gen Stats, Diggs has allowed just 3 catches for 31 yards on 8 targets as the nearest defender in coverage this season. Quarterbacks have a 9.9 passer rating on throws with Diggs as the nearest defender. And about playmaking, he has forced a fumble, intercepted a pass, and recorded 3 pass breakups while being credited with 6 tackles in 2 games this year. So while we believe they can recover, that is absolutely a bit of big-time top-end production loss for the Dallas Cowboys. We will have plenty more to look at in the upcoming NFL weekend as we roll along here. But coming up next, let's take a look at one of the best college football slates in recent memory coming up this Saturday next on GoJo and Golic.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. It is time to turn our attention to the college game with our Modelo College Football Weekend Preview, brought to you by Modelo, the mark of a fighter. So we have a ton of great matchups this weekend. We have talked about how this is one of the most epic college football weekends we can all recall. We have Dan Lanning's 10th ranked Oregon Ducks hosting Deion Sanders and his 19th ranked Colorado squad. Now let's go back, okay? Let's take us back here. During Media Day in August, Lanning was asked about his reaction to Colorado leaving the Pac-12, and he had an interesting take.
Not a big reaction. I mean, I'm trying to remember what they won to affect this conference. I don't remember. You remember them winning anything? I don't remember them winning anything.
Just given the way that Deion's used a lot of bulletin board material, do you regret at all what you said at Oregon Media Day back in August?
No, I don't regret anything that I've said, for this program. At the end of the day, obviously, I wasn't talking about Deion's team. I'm talking about the past and the future for our team. But if that serves as material for them, great, right? I don't think it's going to have any bearing on the game and the success of the game.
So obviously that second clip was from Monday when he was asked about his comments in August. And Yeah, I mean, you could see he was kind of smirking there. He was like, yeah, no, I don't regret saying that at all.
I mean, he understands. And Dad, it's been interesting because that was the first thing I thought of this week, what Jesse just brought up with those two sound bites, and expecting to hear on the other side Deion Sanders saying, now they went ahead and made it personal. And it's been amazing. We have not heard a lot of that this week. Now, so much of Deion's energy was brought up early in the week, addressing all of the death threats going to a Colorado State player and the loss of Travis Hunter for the season, but it hasn't quite been that same week of board material. And you'd have to imagine it's because there's a realization that now this is a step up in weight class.
Yeah.
This is no longer a portion of the schedule where you feel like you're the superior team walking out onto the field. Oregon's a different breed right now.
Without question. And a couple things. Dan Lanning, what he said was right. It was about the past of Colorado, not about this team. What he was talking about, in all honesty, he was right. I mean, Colorado had been the bottom tier here. So it was like, they're going, okay, forgot they were here, type of a deal.
Right.
And he was right. But on the other side, you use anything you can for a chip on your shoulder. But I'll say this, because Deion has done that. How long does that really last? Till kickoff when you do that? Because listen, he made it about as personal as can be against a team he was 21-point favorites against in Colorado State, and he needed 2 overtimes to beat him.
Yeah.
So to sit there and say that bulletin board material with a chip on the shoulder works for you, it hypes you up. But once the ball is kicked off, I don't really think it has a whole lot of impact on the game. And I do agree with you. Maybe a little less talk of what we are and what we're doing when all of a sudden you're facing a team, that's averaging 579 yards a game and 58 points a game. I mean, this is going to be a high-scoring affair. Colorado's defense is not that great, and Oregon's offense is fantastic. So I'll be interested to see, obviously, what the Oregon defense does to Colorado's offense here. As we mentioned, Colorado's a 21-point dog.
Yeah, I think, Dad, your point about that kind of motivation, it works as long as your players are buying into it. And if it focuses them more in practice during the week or helps the preparation, it gives you a little bit more juice at kickoff. Sometimes in some of these games you might worry about that, but I don't think at Colorado's point in their life cycle, they're the team that can roll into kickoff just expecting to win and not having any juice. So that's going to be there. I think in this game, they had a bunch of stuff to clean up from the Colorado State game. And now to your point, going into this one, it feels like an uphill battle because the weaknesses of Colorado's team have always been there, right? Up front, they've been injured. Van Wells, their center, was out last week. Looks like he's questionable for this week.
That's a true freshman taking his spot.
Shedeur Sanders has been hit on 55 dropbacks. That is overwhelmingly the most in D1 football this year. That is not sustainable. And we've seen with some of the injuries on this team, Travis Hunter, we know, going to be out for a number of weeks and affects the offense and the defense. But the rest of this is now going to test the depth in certain places that we said Colorado at the beginning of the season, probably at this point with that amount of turnover, just wasn't built to overcome. And so between the sacks, between the pressures on this one, Dad, Colorado's got its work cut out for us and figuring out, all right, for Sean Lewis and company on offense, how can we scheme around a defensive front on other side that's got guys like Greg Dorless and Jordan Birch and these dudes that can physically overpower most of the Colorado front?
Well, I mean, it's going to be, for as much as he's getting hit, the thought process is get the ball out of his hands quicker and let your guys do damage after they catch the ball and yards after the catch. But you don't have Travis Hunter, a guy that definitely could be one that would be able to do that, because we know Shedeur likes to throw it over the top, but to throw it over the top, again, you need time. And one of the reasons he's getting hit, he's completing some of those and obviously missing on some of those, but he's getting hit either way. And that stuff adds up. So I think this is going to be a tough road for them. Again, one of the things we had talked about with them and all the transfer they had and when it was going to start to come up was going to be depth, right?
Yeah.
So you lose a two-way player in Travis Hunter and you lose a center. Now you have a true freshman there. I see Oregon winning this one, and I'm going to give the points.
Okay, I can't pick this game. I'm calling this game for Learfield audio.
Hey,
so
I'm going to give it. I just think that's going to be too tall a task for Colorado.
Gotcha. Brandon Dorless, by the way, the defensive lineman there. That's a fine for me. Dad, let's get to the second game of this weekend here, and one that feels pretty seismic now as we built it up around it. Number 15, Ole Miss at number 13, Alabama. At this point, Alabama favored by 7 in this game. And Jalen Milroe back as the starter for Alabama after the quarterback experiment against South Florida last week. This is an Alabama team. We talk about sacks too. 130th in sacks allowed per dropback, 118th in pressure rate so far this season. Some of that is new mobile quarterback who's certainly going to put you in harm's way.
Right.
Parts of that are, hey, you had the backup show last week where new guys are in there. You're trying to figure out who's in the pocket and where they're going to be for you. But the bottom line is this Alabama O-line has now for the second straight year been below the standard. Do they rebound this week?
Boy, this is going to be tough, and familiarity in this one as well, right? Lane Kiffin was with Bama between 14 and 16, and Ole Miss beat Bama then, but then Bama ran the table and won the title. Now Ole Miss has Pete Golding, who was Bama's D coordinator for the last few years. He came over to Ole Miss in January, so he knows, obviously what's going on in Alabama. 7, I can't give 7. I think Alabama wins this game, but I think it's going to be closer than the 7. So I think I'll take Bama and I'll take the points.
Yeah, touchdown is too rich for me, but I agree. I think this is a do or die moment for Alabama and Nick Saban, and maybe it's just the remnants of Nick Saban's boot up my you-know-what from 2012, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt in this spot and say they're going to lean more into that ground game and tight end-based identity, the thing that Tommy Rees, by the way, is his specialty coming over from Notre Dame, and Alabama finds a way to get this done, especially that defense. I don't think Ole Miss has seen a defense that's going to come out with as much fire as power as this Crimson Tide defense. That one, again, going to do a lot, I think, to calm some of the flames that seem to be rising up around the Saban kingdom. Dad, let's get to the last game on our slate here. Number 6, Ohio State at number 9, Notre Dame. Ohio State a 3-point favorite in this game right now. The 3rd best defense in the nation in terms of yards per game allowed. They've looked great so far, including last week against a really potent Western Kentucky offense. How are we feeling about this?
Well, I mean, I just love the matchups. You got Marvin Harrison Jr., the best receiver in the game. Emeka Egbuka, another receiver that's going to be a first rounder. Against Benjamin Morrison and Cam Hart, 2 excellent corners for Notre Dame. You have 2 really good edge rushers for Ohio State against our really 2 good offensive tackles in Fisher and Alt. So some great pro matchups in college right now. One of the biggest differences, Ohio State is still breaking in a new quarterback, right? Kyle McCord. They don't have a Heisman hopeful or one of the top quarterbacks in the nation. He's still kind of feeling his way. Sam Hartman is hitting on all cylinders, hasn't turned the ball over. The best number for him, in my opinion, has been 0 for the interceptions. The running game for Notre Dame sometimes starts out slow, but just leans on you. The closer this game is, the more I like the Notre Dame running attack taking over late in the game, especially with Estime and what he can do. He's a monster at about 230 pounds. So I like the way Notre Dame's playing right now. The defense, they got to be able to stop that Ohio State run. They got beat up the middle a decent amount against Central Michigan last week. But overall, I think Notre Dame steps up in the bright lights here in South Bend. They're 3-point dogs, but I'm going with Notre Dame for the win.
Yeah, I've said it this week walking around. This is an if not now, then when game.
Yeah.
You're getting Mitchell Evans, your tight end back,
Right.
J.D. Bertrand, your captain and linebacker back. You're as healthy as you could hope to be going into the game, and the season schedule has built up to this moment in time here. And so I'm with you. I think Notre Dame wins this game. I think having a player who has been there and done that in the way Sam Hartman does can finally be that necessary force to help get that big game monkey off of Notre Dame's back and try and move on with this thing. And I feel dirty just saying it out loud here. I am always so very afraid. Coming up next, I will move far away from that and get back to the NFL next.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. We all gave a collective groan when we saw the hit on Nick Chubb. You could immediately tell something was very wrong. It spawned a fair bit of chatter that it was a dirty hit, something Minkah Fitzpatrick vehemently denies. He was asked about it on Thursday, and he said, "No chance that I would ever try to purposely injure somebody. Unfortunate event. I talked to him briefly as he was on the ground just to let him know that it wasn't intentional. I was just trying to tackle him and make a football play." Okay, and Brown safety Grant Delpit agrees. He came out in defense of Fitzpatrick and the hit as well.
Yeah, it's football, man. I can't say what I would have did in that moment. I'm sure he didn't mean any harm to do any harm to Nick or anything like that. It was just a crazy football play, to be honest. So plays can go 1,000 ways every play. You never know, but it's just tough playing the sport sometimes. Yeah, it's football, man.
So I think he kind of hit the nail on the head when he said it's tough playing this sport sometimes. I mean, you're running at full speed. You're trying to figure out what to do in the moment. Obviously, I've never played football, but I can imagine that when you're just trying to make a tackle or something, can't hit high, can't hit low. It's like you're just running full speed, trying to make the hit.
Well, I think what comes into play as well, especially for a player that's been in the league a while, is what's their reputation. Minkah Fitzpatrick has never really been known as a dirty player or a line stepper. Very tough player, very hard hitter, but we know there are now rules in this league, and I have said, and I think you agree, Mike, the toughest job in the NFL now is to play DB.
Yeah.
How you're allowed to defend on a pass and how you're allowed to hit said receiver or running back. This was one of those where he went low. Chubb was getting tackled, but Chubb's a big guy, and he was getting close to the end zone. It's a split second of I need to take his legs out so he can't get momentum going into the end zone, and that's what I'm going to do. Also, Minkah Fitzpatrick in full bore is not going to take on Nick Chubb high. I mean, you're just not going to do that. So I go a lot on that as well of what a player's reputation is, because certainly in my day I knew players and was teammates with players as well that had reputation. So if something kind of squirrely happened, you would lean to the side of maybe it was on the wrong side because of their reputation. Minkah Fitzpatrick doesn't have that. That was just a hard football play and a very, very unfortunate injury.
I think in a scrum like that down by the goal line too, usually dirty plays are obvious because everyone understands where the line is most parts, even in this violent gladiator sport. And in those phrases, it almost reminds me how surprised I am things like this don't happen more often. Yep. When you see a tight end going down the seam and a safety comes and saws him off low, because again, a guy that's bigger than you got to take him down low. There's such an emphasis on not hitting in the head that guys have been kind of forced into going low. And you're surprised it doesn't happen more often there. The guys are so adept at falling the right way. We heard about Tua learning to fall the right way this offseason. It's one of the first things you focus on, but it's amazing to watch athletes do it at a high level. So the fact that this does not happen more often is almost a godsend.
I agree. And the play that kind of nerves me the most in seeing injuries on the field is that little swing pass to the out, especially to a tight end. So a DB is coming up on a tight end, and because there's such a size difference, the tight end catches the ball, turns a run, and the DB takes him out low because he's not going to hit him high because of the size difference. And if you catch him wrong, like in this case, right when the foot plants, right when you hit low, unfortunately, you get a bad injury. And I'm with you. I'm surprised it doesn't happen more, because you talk to receivers, they actually say, because so much emphasis on the headshots, receivers say, I would rather get hit high than low. Hit me chest and up, even if it includes the head at times, rather than hit me low, because the player's mentality has been, now that could be changing with what we've seen over the years with head injuries, but the thought had always been, if I get a concussion, I can come back from that way quicker than having my ACL blown out where I know I'm done for the year. Again, I think that mentality is starting to change the more we're finding out. But that had been kind of the thought of receivers: hit me up high, don't take my knees out.
Yeah, I think that's a young man's thought.
Yeah.
I think as we see guys get further along and further away from playing, that thought kind of changes.
Yeah, I agree.
For a lot of guys, but that is the prevailing thought. That's what we hear from a lot of guys. And so, Minkah Fitzpatrick said himself, I'm chippy, I'm edgy, of course, but I'm not a dirty player. So echoing that point, I think most people are going to come off that pretty quick. It's what you do when you're frustrated with what went on with Nick Chubb, and we see honestly, mercifully don't see as much of the hit and don't spend as much time legislating that as possible. So, Dad, from there we go and take a look, Jesse, at one of the biggest matchups upcoming this weekend that we have heard surprisingly a lot about from the Jet side here. Garrett Wilson and company understanding what's on the line as they get set to face the New England Patriots.
So the Jets have lost their last 14 games against the Patriots, and it is a streak that Garrett Wilson is saying he's not a fan of, and this needs to end here in week 3.
14 straight is unacceptable. That's unacceptable. We're, I'm 0-2 against them. That's unacceptable. I inherited, I walked into a team that, we haven't beat the Patriots. And I feel like that's why they brought me here and brought me and Sauce here and the guys here to make things like that change. So it's time that we, do what we get paid for.
So guys, the Jets' last win against the Patriots came in 2015 with Ryan Fitzpatrick under center.
Yeah, 2015, Fitzpatrick threw a 6-yard touchdown pass to Eric Decker for a 26-20 overtime win for then coach Todd Bowles' squad.
Wow.
Robert Saleh, now the coach of the Jets, was an assistant in Jacksonville. And Zach Wilson, the quarterback for the Jets, was a sophomore in high school. So it has been a while, and this is one of those, you can't call it a rivalry and one team's a hammer and the other team's a nail. That's what this one is right now, without question.
And it has been traditionally, but it feels like we're kind of limping into this because before, like, it had been the Patriots at the height of their powers.
Yes, exactly.
What we associate with Tom Brady. Like, so many of the Patriots records are associated with a dynasty that doesn't live here anymore. We've got 2 great defenses going up against each other in this game, and offenses that have had similar problems, right? Quarterbacks that they're waiting to still see some out of young quarterbacks and Mac Jones and on the other side now, but both also offensive lines that have struggled mightily through the beginning portion of the season. Injuries had a lot to do with it on both sides. The Patriots last week incredibly beat up along the offensive line heading into that game against the Dolphins. And now for either side, it feels like that's what's going to decide the game here as both of these offenses try and find their footing against defenses that are going to test you in very different ways.
Yeah, I'm sure both teams would like to get their running game going a little bit to help their quarterbacks, which you have 2 quarterbacks, one in Mac Jones, who's trying to continue his quest to be the quarterback of the Patriots. It's a big year for that. And you have another quarterback in Zach Wilson, who at such a young age and little time in the NFL is trying to, let's be honest, revive his career, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he was supposed to be the face of the Jets, got put to the side for a Hall of Famer coming in, and now gets a chance again to show what he can do. So these are 2 quarterbacks in different situations, but both kind of playing to see where their futures are going to go for 2 teams. One, certainly with the Patriots limping in, and the Jets now with Aaron out limping in as well. So this is my kind of game for sure. The defenses by far are the better parts of this game.
Yeah, it's your kind of game until it starts to look like some of the football we got last weekend, the offensive dreck that just nobody enjoys. Like, that's the Rams Patriots. You didn't enjoy the Rams Patriots.
I enjoy anything that where defense is dominating.
You did not have fun watching the Rams Patriots.
Why are you telling me how I feel?
You don't have to lie about that.
I don't know why you're telling me how I feel.
I did a show with you the day after that, and you said you didn't enjoy it.
I said it just to make you happy, because sometimes after the show, I have to hold you because you cry because you don't like my opinion.
Oh, no.
So I was trying to be nice. Yeah, it's exactly right, Jesse. At the end of the day, I'm still a father. He's still my son.
Right.
Okay? And I have to think of his feelings.
Cry because I don't like your
You're
opinions.
a good dad.
Cry because you're so wrong all the time.
You realize
tough.
I've been doing this for a while, and maybe you should be looking up to me.
I understand that, but I mean, you can do something. Practice doesn't make perfect; it makes habit, baby.
You want to go play pickleball?
Oh.
Listen, do you want another broken racket? I can make that happen for you.
Defensive game. The bottom line, this is going to be a defensive game, and I'm here for it.
This is a defensive game the Patriots have to win because their offense much more whole. The Jets have suffered a massive setback. I think they're going to continue feeling the effects of that. Mac Jones is still supposed to be the guy, and the Patriots sitting here at 0 at this point in the season isn't going to sit right with anyone around there. They've got to get this done and find a way on offense, and I think they will.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Cam Rising has not played since suffering an ACL injury in the Utes' 35-21 loss to Penn State in the Rose Bowl, but apparently he's going to suit up on Saturday against UCLA and make his season debut. Now, Utah jumped from 4.5 to a 6-point favorite yesterday in anticipation of Rising making the start. So, guys, another top 25 matchup here. We got number 22 UCLA, number 11 Utah, and 1.5 points worth of hype surrounding Cam Rising's return.
Yeah, this is, you know what, Utah reminds me, I was thinking about them before the show today, of that guy that plays basketball with you at the Y, older guy wearing the knee sleeve, has to spend a ton of time getting warmed up beforehand, but then goes out there and gives you buckets. That seems to be Utah, especially at this point in their life cycle, right? Older team with Cam Rising, the weapons they have on here. Brent Keithy also been banged up a lot this season as well. One of their great tight ends that was injured last year opposite Dalton Kincaid. And so all of that, this is a team that plays such a physical style of football that they've actually kind of ground themselves down in certain areas. But now, especially getting the quarterback back, we've watched them try and basically use two guys to make ones between Bryson Barnes and Nate Johnson. But there's no substitute for one, the leadership, but two, the passing and running ability in one player that Cam Rising provides you that they were trying to make using the other two in tandem.
Listen, and this is a team that's really been, getting where they are, of losing a lot of guys early on. In game one, they had 8 starters out. I mean, they've been patchworking this thing together, now playing a UCLA team that, oh, by the way, beat them last year.
Yes.
And how about a few years ago when DTR, the young DTR freshman, started for UCLA?
Young DTR like something that never existed.
Because he doesn't seem young anymore.
He has always been a 7th-year senior in my brain.
Now we have a young Dante Moore for UCLA who has been nothing short of electric. 7 touchdown passes, but running the ball incredibly well. I think they're third, I believe, in the country in rushing, at about 70 yards a game. Both these teams, I think, are 11 and 12 in stopping the run. So, and Utah's always been great at this. Utah's known for such a tough front seven and tough defense, but both these teams stop the run well. So, who passes better? Dante Moore has been passing well, but as a freshman, and now you get the grizzled veteran Cam Rising coming back in, who, as you mentioned, can add a dual threat to this team. Is he going to have to knock some rust off? How is it going to be right out of the gate? Remember, he blew his knee out in the Rose Bowl last year, and now making that first start since then. I love this game. I mean, this to knowing what these defenses do, especially against the run, which is going to make these quarterbacks have to show out passing the ball, and you have 2 distinct different passers, especially in age.
Yeah, certainly in age. Dante Moore, incredibly talented.
Really is.
It became very apparent early on in the season when they were still rotating guys that things were just different when you put him out there. That's the kind of recruit he was expected to be. That was why there was all the excitement around when he was originally committed to Oregon and then ends up flipping and going down to UCLA. But, Dad, I do think looking at both teams' early portions of the schedule, right? UCLA's played Coastal Carolina, San Diego State, and NC Central.
Right.
They have not been tested in the ways that Utah has at this point without their leader on the field. And while I'd expect there's going to be a certain amount of rust for Cam Rising coming back out here, coming back off a knee, you have no idea how much he's going to be able to give you mobile, because that's one of the areas he runs kind of like Fred Flintstone. A little bit of that yabba dabba do run where, he's getting somewhere and he's making it happen. It doesn't always look pretty. It looks like he's kind of skating upright, but it works. I don't know how much of that he's going to be able to give you at this point, and that was such a vital part of his addition to the offense. So I still think Utah is going to win this game off the backs of that, off how physical they are up front. But give Chip Kelly a lot of credit. He's kind of retooled the UCLA identity in the last few years to be more of a meat grinder on the ground on both sides, especially the defense taking a step forward this year would be huge because they wouldn't stop anybody last year.
Yeah, you listen, Utah's a 5.5-point favorite. I think I'm going with UCLA for the win in this one. I kind of like what they're doing right now. I like this young quarterback. These young quarterbacks coming into college because of what they maybe have done in high school or how much reps they get in these 7-on-7 tournaments around the country and all that don't seem to be as rattled as young in college anymore and step in and are able to perform. And he's been a guy that has been doing that. So I like UCLA in this one.
We'll see if Utah can do against a freshman quarterback what they have struggled to do so far this season. So it's the cliche that games come down to turnovers, but Utah just one forced turnover in 3 games so far, while UCLA's defense has forced 8. Maybe UCLA's defense can find a little bit of what USC had last year, a group that overperformed largely because they led the country in forced turnovers. Right. So we will wait and see with that. But Jesse, as we look outward elsewhere this weekend, I think the game that I want to look at most, Dad, is Florida State Clemson. We've talked so much about the ranked games this weekend, but looking there, Clemson not ranked right now, and a lot of Clemson fans a little up in arms about the fact that, they lose one game and now they fall out of the top 25, but Alabama loses one game and then looks like what against South Florida, but they still get to hang out in the teens. But that's a story for another day. It just means more. Dad,
win this game then.
Win this game, and in a game where, again, Clemson is not a huge dog at home to a Florida State team that is ranked 4th in the country right now. At this point, I think Florida State was favored by 2.5 going into this game. That's a bit surprising and indicative that tales of Clemson's demise may have been grossly exaggerated, and also people probably a little freaked out by that BC game last week.
That BC game surprised us as we were watching it and seeing, that being way closer than it should have been. All apologies to Jesse on that one, the BC grad. Sorry, but we all thought that was going to be an absolute blowout, and it wasn't. But I don't know how you don't like Florida State in this with Jordan Travis and what he can do. Though Clemson defense can be tough, I just like what he brings and what he does. And I think if they start to get up in this game, I don't know about Clemson's ability to be able to come back. I think that's one of the big worries for me.
Yeah, Cade Klubnik, while extremely talented, another high-profile recruit that Clemson was able to capture here, it still has not been able to turn it all the way on so far this season, as you've had Garrett Riley coming over there at the helm of that offense. And for Florida State, listen, it's not like they've faced world beaters in the last couple of games after LSU. I think a lot of the public perception is still coasting off what they did against LSU, but knowing the kind of firepower on offense that gelled almost right away against an LSU defense that is also not a slouch. There's plenty of talented dudes out there, even if people wanted to beef about the role of one player. And so ultimately, Dad, I think this is a game that Florida State wins, and I think this is one for them. It's going to be pretty big, right? In the midst of a season where they were turning around a lot last year, Clemson still beat them last year. There's still this idea that if you want to go and accomplish the things that you believe you're capable of, Clemson has been the belle of the ball in the ACC for the college football playoff era. Them and Alabama have defined this era, and while I don't think Alabama is yet ready to go quietly into this good night, I have more concerns about Clemson going up against this particular Florida State team that's their total antithesis, right? For Clemson on the offensive side, it's going to be a dose of Will Shipley. He's the best player on their offense.
Right.
For Florida State, they got it from every spot. They've got big playmakers. It's what they've been the best at in the last 1.5 years now. And so I think the Seminoles get this one done.
I mean, their 2 receivers, Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman, who we talked about in that first game, that they won against LSU. They're averaging 19 and 14-2 per catch. I mean, just big play guys, whether it's a short catch, they're turning into longer catches, or big plays down the field. I just think they're going to have too much firepower for Clemson.
It's interesting. And you look around college football right now, for me as a child of the late 90s into the early 2000s, seeing teams like Texas, seeing teams like Florida State, seeing those helmets be back playing meaningful football in college is an exciting time. And for Florida State, once you got through the end of the Jimbo Fisher era,
right,
and you waved goodbye to Jameis Winston company there, and one of the best college offenses we've ever seen, there's been so much wonder, especially over the last 4 years since Mike Norvell's been here, about what this team can accomplish. Has college football passed them by? They were trying to get out from under and fire this coach. And lo and behold, because financially they were kind of forced to keep him around, it's actually worked out to where it's developed into something now that seems sustainable. But they've also built to this point, right? You got a quarterback that's been playing college football since the 80s.
Right.
And you're probably going to be able to recruit better to that down the pipeline here. But you got to maximize this while you got the opportunity with a veteran quarterback who is lethal with his legs that should absolutely also hurt Clemson.
So are we saying Texas and Florida State are back? Every year we try and do this with certain teams, right? They're back. Is the U back?
I mean, I think they are back.
I do too.
I think they are back.
I do too. I would agree.
Coming up next, Jason Fitz also back with us here on GoJo and Golic.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. It was an eventful week in the NFL. So we had the season-ending Nick Chubb injury, Justin Fields drama, Cam Akers traded, all of this leading up to an exciting week 3 in the NFL. So with more on that, let's send it over to the guys who are standing by with Yahoo Sports and Fox Sports radio host Jason Fitz.
Yeah, so we might as well go ahead and get the whole band back together. We were just looking here at what used to be mornings over at ESPN for a while, and now we spread the love out a little bit, but we felt like bringing them back here. Fitzy, what's going on, man?
Do you guys sing because we're the three best friends that anybody could have every because I do. I do every.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, I think you felt we were way better friends than we really were. You have to understand, because we were together doing a show, that we had to act like we liked you.
Okay, so I've got one of you and my friend is Bestie 1 in my phone, and the other is Bestie 2. I'll let you guys figure out which is which. But that, like, you're telling me I need to change the names in the phone?
If people are ever wondering and they've seen, like, man, why are you so mean to Fitz publicly? It's because if you say even the slightest nice thing about him,
he wants to hug you.
This is what he does. He's like a in Arizona, there's something called a teddy bear cactus. It's a spiky little cactus, and it can sense heat. And when you get close to it, it'll actually jump. It's called a jumping cholla, and it'll jump off and it'll latch onto you. That is Fitz.
The jumping Jason.
If you give him a little bit of warmth next to you, he's just going to grab hold of you with his little vice grip. And he's got tiny little arms, so he wriggles on you. It's terrifying.
The next time I see you, I'm going to run down the hall screaming, I'm a jumping cholla, as I find a, because believe me, you thought we hugged too long before. HR was there. Now there's no HR to protect you. This hug's going to go wild.
I will never forget, as long as I live, we were in a college football preseason meeting down in Charlotte. They get everyone together in this room, and they're going over all the protocol for the upcoming year, what the points of emphasis are going to be for the season. And then at one point, they do have HR come up there and kind of explain all the policies to you. And they flashed up a graphic on the screen talking about inappropriate hugs, hugging someone too long or an area. And the amount of us that all just turned our heads at once to look at Fitz, going, the amount of us that have been hugged too long at times we don't want to be hugged by Jason Fitz, a.k.a. Tickle Me Elmo, a.k.a. names that I can't say on air, was incredible to watch. So Jason's reputation as being, a lot of people say, oh, I'm a hugger. Jason Fitz
a hugger.
Has hug woven into his DNA if you were to break him down at a cellular level.
The fact that so many of my male, I should stress, and very good friends at that seminar, every single one of them decided that was the time to either look at me or text me. Jordan Rogers actually FaceTimed me in the meeting. From the meeting, he pressed the FaceTime meeting. He looked down and he said, "You hearing this?" Like, yeah. Uh-huh.
I was going to say, I guess I should make that abundantly clear too. It was all men looking back at Jason. It was his male colleagues.
Jason is just a very, very good friend. I remember Jason most for the foamer you had on your desk that would make your coffee foam. You still have that?
No. Look, there's a certain family that introduced me to Orange Theory. I'm now a beacon of fitness. I will tell you this year, even though I had a stress fracture and spent about 3 months in a boot, I have cut my body fat in half while only losing about 6 pounds. So I put on muscle, and I'm a golden god around these parts. So there's no place. I'm not taking that extra foam in. I'm a water guy now. I'm a water guy. All water all the time.
Just make sure that water's not branded. We're no free ads around there.
No, it's just an empty water bottle. There we go.
My God. Well, let's focus less on the water. We want to get to a bunch of NFL stuff with you, Fitzy, obviously, but you're wearing your UNLV shirt, repping proudly for the hometown team there. I got my Notre Dame shirt on. We got College Game Day out here for Notre Dame, Ohio State this weekend, and we're obviously really close to this personally, as you well know, but seeing the magnitude of it around campus here, it was insane yesterday. I'm leaving town today to go call the Oregon-Colorado game, but Dad, you're going to be here through the weekend, and we lived this before. Like, I remember when College Game Day came here when we played Stanford my senior year, and even as a player, you couldn't ignore it. Like, I came out, I wanted to see the game day set, I wanted to see the College Game Day show that I had watched all as a kid, and so it's impossible to totally recuse yourself from these big moments. You hear a lot of coaches talking about embracing that, but it fits for you from the outside looking in, looking at this as another of a very big group of games on the slate this weekend. How do you see this Notre Dame-Ohio State matchup?
I think it's important to remember that this isn't the Notre Dame that we're used to seeing because, frankly, over the last couple of years, they've been hamstrung by quarterback play. And what are we seeing across the landscape of college football? Even Alabama doesn't look like Alabama if you don't have a quarterback. Notre Dame has a proven quarterback here. I went back and tried to rewatch, and I say tried because it was painful, some of the Ohio State so far this year. And I know how talented Ohio State is, but their offense has not been in sync. They've had little spurts where they've looked good, but they've not put 4 quarters together. In the meantime, you've got a quarterback over at Notre Dame with Hartman that he's done this for years. It's just nobody was paying attention before, right? So he gets to Notre Dame where things are more explosive, things are easier, they can push the ball downfield. I think the most interesting part of this is that he will push the ball downfield, and we think that Ohio State has the corners to match up with that, but how the hell do we know, right? So in my mind, what's happened right here is we're spending too much time looking at this game based on the reputation of two programs. Like, we're looking at the reputation of Ohio State and say, well, they're going to be a national championship contender. And we're looking, sorry to say this, at the reputation of Notre Dame. Well, they just blow big games, right? Like, people want to make it that simple. It is neither of that to me. This is not the Ohio State of the last 3 years, and this is not the Notre Dame of the last 3 years. You guys are personally invested. My bank account's personally invested in Notre Dame in this game. I think they're going to win.
I completely agree with you about kind of the perception of the teams because for Notre Dame for the last few years in big games, because we didn't have that passing quarterback, it had been, man, I hope we don't get down too much because we're not going to be able to come back because we don't have, the quarterback. Now we do. So I go into this game, again, trying to hold back a little bit, but saying, I think we have the team because we have the quarterback, where in all 3 games, they've run a 2-minute drill at the end of the half. He's taken him down for a touchdown. The biggest number to me is 0 interceptions. And on Ohio State side, they're still breaking into new quarterbacks. So it does seem like a very, very close matchup, not like what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and Hartman is efficient with the football. To your point, he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He's deliberate with the football. Mike said to me yesterday, you talk about the experience you get sometimes with college football quarterbacks. He has seen so much football. I don't think any of this really soaks in as a big moment. Like, it's a big moment, but it's not too big for somebody like Hartman that's played as much football as he has to handle. This is really set up well. And by the way, one of my peers at Yahoo Sports pointed out that Ohio State has been gouged in the running game as well. So there's going to be opportunities all over the place offensively for Ohio State. I think this is going to be an awakening moment where people look at it and say, oh, wait, this is what offense can look like for Notre Dame. I like them a lot in this game.
Yeah, I think I selfishly am always going to bring things back to the trenches, but I do think for all the talk about Ohio State's receivers, they're going to get theirs. They're too good not to.
Yeah.
It's going to be Mayan Williams and that Ohio State rushing attack against Notre Dame box that's probably going to be lighter because of all the pass resources. And on the other side, you've heard from Michael Hall Jr. and this Ohio State defensive line. They want to be the best defensive line in the country. And in the run game, Jason's pointed out they can be had a little bit. But in the pass game, that interior especially is going to be an interesting matchup for Notre Dame where, yeah, they got the future all pros at right tackle and left tackle. Right. But on the inside, still Green, still coming along. So we'll wait and see. Reputation, it's interesting you bring that up, Jason, as we look ahead to the NFL, because reputation can do a lot for fans. And we hear this every year going into the NFL draft about Ohio State quarterbacks, about how you shouldn't draft them because Ohio State quarterbacks are never good. And then all of a sudden you look up until you've got the right one. And CJ Stroud so far in the NFL looks like the right one through the first couple of weeks. What have you made of the rookie quarterbacks so far that we've seen right now as we get set to walk into a weekend where it doesn't look like one of them is going to play in Bryce Young?
Yeah, I think, look, my heart breaks anytime Bryce Young misses any action because let's be real, the biggest knock on Bryce Young, and somebody said to me yesterday, if he'd been 3 inches taller, the Bears wouldn't have traded their first overall pick. Well, okay, well, he isn't, right? And so there are these little things about Bryce Young people were concerned about. Now he's injured. That's a concern. I think CJ Stroud has looked exactly like I thought he would look. He's looked under control. The biggest surprise to me out of all of this is that Anthony Richardson so quickly looks good. And it reminds me of something that I will credit both of you guys for really emphasizing with me from the first time that we worked together, and that it's that we like to label players in general as a bust for whatever they don't accomplish in the league without acknowledging that scheme and coaching matters. Like Shane Steichen goes into Indianapolis, brings a little bit of the Jalen Hurts playbook, but really from the outset, it felt like, we always talk about those 10 throws that the quarterback's really comfortable with. What are the plays you can put in? From the outset, it looked like Anthony Richardson was being made comfortable by Shane Steichen's system and his coaching. So the biggest surprise to me is that somebody that had very little proof of concept in college football looked more comfortable than I expected. Although, again, he's had a couple nasty hits in the first 2 games of the season. So there's going to be this adjustment period. But I think we're seeing a quarterback class overall that's far ahead of where the last couple have been 2 weeks into the season.
Yeah, you mentioned with Anthony Richardson, nothing like game 1. Trevor Lawrence actually tells Anthony Richardson, dude, you got to not take these hits. You want to be around a while. I know you're big and strong. Interesting. My wife and I were having this discussion. She was asking me as we were getting ready to watch San Francisco play, Brock Purdy being a 7th rounder and playing so well. She said, what if one of these young players, Young, Stroud, or Richardson, were actually on San Francisco's team? When you get a high pick, you go to a bad team. This is a low pick. He went to a really good team. So does it make it more of a I don't want to say more of a system. I don't want to take that away from Brock Purdy, but how young quarterbacks, if they're on a better team, can maybe make hay a little earlier.
Yeah, a young quarterback that, again, to steal GoJo's point, has played a lot of football, goes to somebody that's a really brilliant offensive coach, and then he has the opportunity to sit back and sort of digest all of this and learn all of this without any pressure. Like, I just, it's wild to me, as they said in the broadcast last night, Brock Purdy has a roommate in San Francisco, right? Like he's still at that spot where I don't know that, we talk a lot about the adjustment for players, which I think is huge. Like imagine suddenly you're drafted, you live in a city you know nothing about, you don't know anybody, you're suddenly a teammate with a grown ass man that has a wife and kids and family and responsibilities. Like it's different. It's what's interesting to me is that Brock Purdy has managed to keep himself really insulated while he learns this offense. And he was already a smart quarterback. So we become so obsessed with, can this guy make Patrick Mahomes-like plays? I think the problem is if you're continually trying to win the lottery to pay your bills, you're not going to do very well very often. And trying to get the next Patrick Mahomes is like winning the lottery. So it's smart by San Francisco to take a guy later in the draft, at the end of the draft, that they can really just take a flyer on. And worst case scenario, you're coaching a smart kid up to be your backup for life, which is a good thing for a team to have. Best case scenario, you end up with Brock Purdy. So this is a smart move by a smart team handling a smart quarterback. It doesn't take away from the Trey Lance mistake, right, but it's still a smart move by a smart team with a smart quarterback.
Yeah, I only give them so much credit for the Brock Purdy pick because it's a 7th rounder. Those are flyers. Those are ones you're taking because one scout likes the guy there. Like you passed on him multiple times, as did everybody else in the draft here. He deserves a lot of credit for what he's done here. But to Fitz's point and to your point, Dad, about what happens if one of these quarterbacks would fall to a good team, it's called the Patrick Mahomes. Like when you go to a healthy organization like the Chiefs that have been making the playoffs and doing pretty well with Alex Smith at the helm, and then you sprinkle some of that sauce on there, now you get a quarterback that looks like he's on the trajectory to be the greatest of all time. Speaking of the Chiefs and a quarterback looking to bounce back, Fitz, what have you made of the Chicago Bears situation right now? Justin Fields coming out the other day and having to retract comments that he made, talking about coaching and not playing fast enough here. They head on the road at Arrowhead. How worried are you about the trajectory of this team with Fields at the helm?
It's imploded. And, the hardest part about that is that when a locker room goes into save myself mode, it means everything's broken. When guys start openly saying, as someone else said the other day, on the wax, like if anybody's in front of a microphone and they're putting it on wax where they're like, okay, the coaching's the issue. Now all of a sudden you have a problem. And even a bigger problem to me is that, you had the Bears tweet out a video of Justin Fields hugging one of the coaches, like everything's fine. Like it's not just us that are obsessing about it. If they're on the field being like, hey, make sure we post this, everything's good. Like the more people tell you everything's good in any business, I don't care if we're talking, like anytime I would walk into a record label situation and you take a song and you're like, hey, the song's it's not doing great yet. We okay? Oh, no, everything's great. You might as well just throw that song in the trash. It's not going anywhere. Anytime in my sports media career, where you're like, hey, everything good? Like change is coming. Everything. No, everything's great. Boom. Like the minute they start hugging on the sideline, it's washed. It's over. It's done. That whole thing's gone. It's gone.
Well, it's like when that owner gives the coach the vote of confidence,
Yes,
we're fine there. Next thing you know, that coach is looking for a job. Jason, of the 0-2 teams that you thought were going to be or feel are going to be good this year, which ones are you actually worried about that they may not be able to pull themselves out?
Okay, so I'm not worried about the Bengals the way a lot of people are, but I am a little worried about the Bengals just because the calf is like a problem, right? Like Joe Burrow, I think expectations have to be part of this conversation. Like the Bengals are in a Super Bowl every year sort of mindset. I don't look at this calf issue and think it's ever going to get healthy. It's going to get healthy enough. I mean, and then you're talking about somebody that likes to push the ball downfield that's now pushing the ball downfield with the calf issue. Like from a quarterback standpoint, that seems like that's going to linger all year. So it's not like I'm sitting here saying that the Bengals are suddenly going to be a top 10 draft pick. But if the expectation is a Super Bowl and a stacked AFC, and we're talking about home field advantage and all of that, like I'm quietly at least a little worried that the Bengals suddenly find themselves at the lesser tier trying to work their way into it. And if you don't have 100% of Burrow, I don't know. 100% is a hard word to use, but if you don't have the best of Burrow going into January, you ain't going to beat Mahomes. So yeah, I'm actually, unlike Mike, I'm a little concerned about the Bengals.
Well, I think I've said my concern is less about the Bengals being able to rebound on a slow start and more with you, like the calf becomes a concern because that's an injury. That's not something that is just a built-in part of their season or starting slow because of circumstance here. It's a real life thing and a soft tissue injury that you're going to have to cope with for most of the rest of the year. And with one of the things that's been Joe's biggest strength, and to your point, Fitz, they're judged against the Chiefs. They're judged against the Bills team that, oh, by the way, looked a lot better this last week after the way they looked early in the season.
I don't remember. They look good. I missed week 2. I don't know what happened.
Oh my God. By the way, Fitz, how are you feeling about the Raiders right now? Like, let's do the early season
can we?
check.
And I'm doing this as selfish to me. I'm calling the Raiders Steelers game for Westwood 1 on Sunday night.
My dad's work for
do some work for me and give me your breakdown of where the Raiders are right now, as both these offenses, in a word, stink.
But I'm going to give you a little bit of a defensive side of the ball breakdown for the Raiders, because this is the important part of it. If you look back at week 1, they were playing this deep zone sticks coverage, essentially. Keep everything in front of us, don't get burned, and trust your guys to tackle. That worked against an inept offense. It didn't work against the Bills, obviously, because it's the Bills. Guys can get open. So if you're the Raiders, you're playing back and you're sort of protecting against everything, and you're trying to take care of it in front of you. If the pass rush doesn't get home, that even becomes more dramatic. So when you are taking on a good quarterback or a great quarterback like Josh Allen, who's not getting pressured, he now has all day to throw, and your defensive plan is just don't get burned. The problem with that is, A, if you get burned, you're up a creek. But B, you're letting the other team stay on the field forever. Go back and watch week 1. The Broncos' number of drives was absolutely insane. They didn't have very many of them because those drives were taking forever. So the Raiders are trying to slow the whole game down by keeping the other team on the field but limiting touchdowns, and then hoping that their offense can turn around and stay on the field for a long time. When you can't run the football, you can't do that. So the weirdest part is that offensively, Josh Jacobs and the offensive line have a weird timing issue where nothing's going the right way. I blame the offensive line for part of that. I blame the way they're being covered too as part of that. But on the defensive side of the ball, man, I'm telling you, Kenny Pickett is going to put up a high completion percentage, because every single quarterback every week is going to put up a high completion percentage. Their bet is if we force you to 3rd and 3, we can get you off the field. It sort of worked week 1 in the red zone. It didn't work at all week 2. So Pickett's going to carve them up with a high completion percentage.
Man, you're right. In that game against the Broncos, the Raiders had 7 drives. The Broncos had 6. There's not a lot of tries in that game.
That is an offensive slog. Fitz, why aren't they throwing the ball to Michael Mayer? What do they hate about our sweet Golden Dome child there? We sent them this perfect, wonderful gift. I told you how excited you should be because you're going to get this meat grinder out there, and you guys just feel like throwing it back to the old Patriots era and targeting Jacoby Myers a million times a game?
Okay, here's the thing. Like I talked to the team, and they were aware that you haven't gotten me a jersey signed by him yet, so they're not going to use it until I get something. I mean, that's the way this works. Now, I am with you though. Like the weirdest part of Jimmy G is that week 1 he was comfortable with Jacoby Myers. That was obvious. Week 2 he was comfortable with Devontae. That was obvious. If he's not read that comfort level with you, he's not even looking. If you go back and watch the tape, there were plays where Hunter Renfrow was wide open, and Jimmy G's like, nah, no. Week 3 is Hunter's week. That you didn't make the list this week.
It's going to be interesting. We hope for our sweet former Notre Dame son's sake that he makes the list this week. Fitz, we appreciate you joining us this week. Thank you so much, sir. Everyone check out all of Fitz's fine work over at Yahoo Sports. You can also listen to him on the radio on the weekends as well for Fox Sports Radio. Fitz, thanks so much, brother. We appreciate it.
Mike, he can just do 2 Fitz or 2 Jason on that jersey. Either way, just ship it on out, and then we'll throw it up on the wall, and he'll start getting the ball. Appreciate you, boys.
Yeah, see you, man. He's going to be afraid he's going to get a hug then. That's going to be
yes, exactly.
Fun.
That's the worry is if Michael Mayer gives him an inch, Fitz is just going to jump over there and bear hug him. And then Michael Mayer's reflex is going to be football violence, and then he's going to get charged with that.
And he'll blame us for it. And we won't be friends with him anymore.
And it's about maintaining our relationship with Michael over our relationship with Fitz, because that's just showbiz, baby. Coming up next, let's get shirtless and weird here on GoJo and Golic.
Got to call Walter.
All right, welcome back to GoJo and Golic. And we decided a while back, every once in a while, we need to go and harvest the internet for all of its beauty. My father is many things, a former NFL player, Hall of Fame broadcaster, but he is not a man who has grown up in these internet streets the way I have. And so I like to work as his dealer. I'm going to go and get the best stuff from the internet, and then I'm going to come over here trench coat style and sell it to him right here in the basement. Doesn't sound weird at all.
No.
And we got pretty good crop for you today. It is senior versus the internet, and there is no better place to start from yesterday and what we saw online than a golf freak out for the ages here. This is a confrontation between a group of golfers and one man who we still haven't figured out the origin, whether they hit into him, whether it was a dispute about him hitting somebody else's ball, but it ends in a way that none of us were prepared for. Take a listen.
We got a Karen on the golf course right now.
After I don't give you a goddamn thing.
I'm going to take your clubs.
Take it.
This is even where
Then leave.
I'm not getting a fight on a golf course.
Then leave. I'm going to stand here and you can complain. Goodbye.
I'm not complaining. You're the one pitching.
No, you're the one who coached me and I asked you no longer speak.
You took her ball.
Please don't speak to me.
We're coming over here. You took her ball.
Bro, you took her ball.
Dude, I'm not going to fight you over.
If you need money for a golf ball,
I'm going to, Walter. Because I'll plant you, boy. Now get the off the cart.
Walter.
Walter.
Oh, here we go.
You see that?
Oh.
That's what you spend to heaven. You want to test God? You come get it.
He's mentally ill.
Oh.
Let's move along.
You think I'm mentally ill?
I know you.
Bend to heaven. Hey, leave me alone.
So, wow. He emphasizes twice that he has been to heaven.
Yeah.
And if you want to test God, I need to know more. Much like that mother ever isn't real woman from the plane.
Oh, right.
I need to know more about this guy who claims to have seen God. Did he die? Has he just made a trip up there? Did he go on the little Elon space rocket thing? I got questions.
So this is one of those, and we don't know, did they hit up into him? We don't know what happened, but he was holding, obviously, her golf ball, and it sounded like it was two couples, right?
Yes,
A foursome and two couples. And what you heard the one guy said, I don't want to get into a fight on a golf course. I would agree. You don't want to get into a fight. I mean, come on.
Especially now with the guy that's seen God.
Well, I mean, even before he went ballistic there, no one wants to get into a fight. You're just going to get your lines in, and then you're hopefully going to move on. But man, then he rips his shirt off and starts, talking about his body and everything. I was like, in today's world, you just can't do that anywhere because you don't know what's going to happen. You had a group here that just left. What if somebody took him on? And that dude was going to get worn out. And that dude was going, yes.
I don't know, just off effort and energy. I like him walking into the fight.
That dude was going to get smoked if somebody challenged him. Let me just say
I got
this.
him minus 150 against Walter.
Let me just say this. If someone wanted to step out of the cart, before they stepped out of the cart, they had already sized it up and said, you know what? If you were in that cart and a fight was going to happen, don't you think you could have dropped that dude?
Well, yes, but I'm saying it seems like the folks in the cart made a business decision based on the show of force that they saw.
It also seems like maybe, because we never saw the people in the cart, that maybe that guy thought a freak out might get these people out, and he knew there wasn't going to be any sort of challenge here from this group. The problem is when somebody steps out from that cart and challenges you after you've pulled your shirt off, made that stand, and the next thing you know, your face is in the dirt.
You guys, he has golf clubs less than a foot away from him. Yeah, of course they drove away after they saw him rip his shirt off, go bananas. You heard the woman, she was like, he's mentally ill. He's got golf clubs very close to him. A golf club can do a lot of damage. You don't have to get close to somebody to do damage with a golf club. So I think they made the right decision because he looked like he was this close to turning around and grabbing one of those, and then you don't want to be within swinging distance of that. Also, a real, Jekyll and Hyde situation, because when this confrontation started, he was like arms crossed and he was like, don't speak to me like that, Walter. And then all of a sudden the shirt comes off. I mean, talk about a flip being switched there.
But and listen, at the end of the day, I agree with you. Nobody wants to fight there. I mean, who wants to get out and fight on a golf
He
course.
does.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, depending on what kind of golf course. If it's a country club, maybe not. But if it's like a Beater Muni course, that seems like what you're supposed to
go ahead and start having at it.
I mean, just some of those courses where the fairway's all brown and rough there, the greens aren't kept very well.
He did have a collared shirt on, so we wonder what kind of a place he was at.
My thing is you can clearly tell this was a guy that was not playing well that day.
No.
Like, there's no way the man who's seen God was playing a good round that day, because you would never be that mad if you're striping the ball.
You're focused to go quickly somewhere else if you were playing well. You're right.
He's 2 holes away from finishing a round where he's gone triple bogey, carded a couple of snowman. Like, it's not been a great time for old boy there. Dad, the worst I've ever seen you freak out in a golf course was when a guy tried to come over when we were playing in Connecticut and get me and my brother Jake to tuck in our shirts on a golf course.
And Jake to turn his hat around.
Yes.
Jake had his hat on backwards. We were at a country club I belonged to for like a year. I finally had joined one to golf more in Connecticut while I was at ESPN. Me, Mike, and Jake were golfing. And I mean, this dude was on the green of another hole, yelling down to us on a green, I think, as well. Hey, turn your hat around, tuck in your shirt.
We don't do that around here.
Yeah, we don't. I looked up at him and I said, my man, you got your foursome, I got my group. Do not speak to my kids that way or things will end badly for you. I mean, you're right. I mean, I did.
He said, I'll parent my kids. You don't need to come over here and do that.
You just said who wants to fight on a golf course. Well, I guess.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. Nobody wants to fight, but boy, the dude came riding over.
He had a knee sleeve on. We knew he was weak.
Yeah, he came over riding after that. It was kind of like, hey, that's kind of what we do. I said, listen, if the pro comes over here and tells me we got to do something, fine. I said, I don't give a damn what you say. I don't care what you say, and don't say anything. Oh yeah, Mike's right. I got hot on that one, and if there was any confrontation, I probably would have had to throw down.
I get it. When it comes to your kids, there's no
I snapped right away. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. And my son Jake's a grown ass man.
Yeah, I mean, this was like 2 or 3 years ago.
This was, exactly. Both my kids can beat me up, yet I was jumping out.
I thought they were like young. This was like high school kids. Like,
I cannot stress enough. We were north of 30 at this point.
Oh, and yeah, this guy was he was a tool. Is what he was.
Definitely.
He was a tool. Yeah. To do that, I wouldn't even consider, if I'm on a golf course, a country club or whatever, and I look over and I see a guy with a shirt untucked or hat backwards, I wouldn't even consider saying anything to that. For him to actually speak out and say, we don't do that here, oh my God.
That is Karen
behavior.
behavior.
I wanted to 7-iron him in the back of the knee.
It is Karen behavior because, like you said, it's seeking out the problem and going to whatever. Like you said, if someone comes up to you who works there and says, hey, you got to do this, you're going to do it. You're going to do it, no problem. But you don't have to come out here, drive your cart across the course and be like, tuck your shirt in.
Yeah, we police ourselves here. Okay.
I just want someone to go back 5 minutes ago into this segment when my dad said, who wants to get in a fight on a golf course? Who would do this on a golf course? And then
well, we didn't get in a fight.
But you were, you just said if he needed to, you would have thrown down.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that dude wouldn't have been dumb enough to do that.
He didn't want to, he had to.
Exactly. See, there's a difference. Wanting to and having to. I had to, at that point, Jesse, at that point, I had to protect my children.
Yeah, you're young
I had my
boys.
arm around my children and say, I got you guys. I'll protect you from the big bad boogeyman.
Always.
So we were afraid of watching you get your ass kicked in public.
That would have been bad, right?
Tough, man. I wouldn't have been able to work through
Get him, Dad. Get him. Ooh, Dad, get up.
You said he had a knee brace.
Oh, no.
You said he had a knee brace, so you were.
Yeah, he did. I'd have gone right for it, too.
Yeah.
I'd have gone right for it.
Yeah.
Right for the injured knee. There you go.
Yeah, right for it.
We smelled the fear on him.
Absolutely. It would have been a side kick to the side of his knee right away.
There you go.
So, yeah, honestly, if anyone at GoJo and Golic, if you've got any more information on Golf Course Karen that we saw out here, I guess, do we call him Golf Course Ken? Ken kind of
probably Ken.
Well, Ken has a different connotation after the Barbie movie.
He does. You're right. You can't do that. You can't call him Ken. You can't disparage Ken from Barbie like
Carl? Is Carl Karen?
Karen Carl?
No, I think it's just Karen. He's a Karen.
Just Karen. Yeah. He deserves to just be called a Karen.
Yeah, he is.
Quite honest.
If anyone's got any more information on Golf Course Karen, I just need to know now how this man met God. I will not rest until I figure out how this body was home meeting God. Coming up next, we will try and meet the NFL weekend where it's at and get you guys ready for all the matchups coming up next on GoJo and Golic.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. We have a fun little thing here on the DK Sportsbook, so you can take the last team to stay undefeated. Okay, so Niners are the newly minted favorites here at plus 150, followed by the Eagles at plus 250, Cowboys plus 350, Ravens plus 550, Dolphins plus 700, Falcons plus 1200, Saints, Bucks plus 2,000, Commanders plus 3,000. So guys, we have Eagles plus 250 at the Bucks on Monday plus 2,000. So interesting.
The fact that the Bucks and the Commanders are on this list
how
is still incredible
Yeah.
and one of the biggest headlines in the NFL season.
Let's just push that aside and go right to the 49ers, the Cowboys, and the Eagles.
Well, I was going to say, how far down this list do you go before you start discounting teams completely from this? Like, does it go through the Miami Dolphins where you'd say these teams have a realistic chance? Because I would probably cut it off and say, at the Falcons and Saints, I don't trust the NFC South enough to believe that either of those would be the last two teams standing here.
So I'll leave Miami in there.
I was going to say, Miami and everything north of that, I think we're talking about all teams in a very comparable range at this point in the season.
I would agree. And you look at the 49ers, in a couple of weeks, they play the Cowboys. Now, again,
so that'll be a little early.
Trevon Diggs being out certainly is going to hurt that defense. They also play the Eagles, and they also play the Ravens. So certainly some tough games on the schedule for them. We know Philly and Dallas are going to play 2 times, so they're going to match up with one another. So I'm not sure about looking at Miami's schedule of where they are, because you're right, they should be on there. Obviously, they're going to have the Bills.
Yeah, I was going to say, part of this is certainly going to be playing the schedule game if you're realistically trying to look at this.
Right.
And if we're also looking at who we think is the best team of this bunch at this point here, because this includes AFC and NFC. We know the AFC comparatively the much tougher conference right now. But in the NFC, when we look at the teams at the top, Philadelphia Eagles, we know, stacked roster, but so far in the early portion of the season, haven't quite looked like the same group of world beaters. We talked with Mina Kimes about the linebacker core, maybe being an area that teams are going to target this year as Jonathan Gannon is out, so new defensive coordinator and all of that stuff there. The 49ers last night looked a little bit more human against the New York Giants than we expected, but still took care of business there. And then the Cowboys have looked like a shredder so far this season, and injury be damned on that, certainly. And it sounds like while Tyler Biadasz dealing with a hamstring injury, we know about Trevon Diggs. Zach Martin also expected to go after rolling an ankle last week. Dad, there's part of me that looks at the Dallas Cowboys and maybe can talk myself into feeling most comfortable with them after what we've seen the first couple of weeks. And a lot of that credit due, again, to Mike McCarthy and the job that he's done as the play caller.
A guy that everybody couldn't get rid of fast enough, right? Isn't it amazing? Everybody wanted this guy out, and now he's got his team playing the best in the league. I have a feeling they split with Philadelphia this year, so that would take them out. As I mentioned, San Francisco has the Cowboys, has the Ravens, has a few tough games there. Miami has the Eagles, has the Chiefs. Their last 3 games of the season are the Cowboys, the Ravens, and the Bills. So I don't think anybody's going undefeated.
No.
But if you were to right now, based off what I saw I would say the 2 closest would be the Cowboys and San Francisco of the way they're playing right now, which, as we continue to say, is very, very, very early in the season. So let's still give it some time and see if, in fact, injuries start to add up a little bit for each of these teams, if they're hurt early, can be healthy late, or how it's going to work for them.
I would say for all of these teams, so for the teams at the top of this that we might mention, San Francisco, Dallas, and then the Miami Dolphins, as far as teams on the AFC side of here, you look, it really is going to be in the next 2 weeks. For the Dallas Cowboys, they play the Cardinals this weekend, and then it's the 49ers in 2 weeks.
Right.
For the Dolphins, they play the Broncos. Theirs will actually come sooner. They're on the road at Buffalo next weekend in a game that I think is going to be the big test for them. And then for San Fran, it's the Cowboys. So really, this comes down to, do you either think the Ravens are capable of making a run, or who you think is better between the Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers?
Right.
Because I just think statistically, if you were trying to win this bet, the Dolphins have the much tougher game sooner, and it's on the road against a Buffalo team that seemed to rebound a little bit in week 2 last week. If I'm trying to actually win this bet for who stays undefeated the longest this season.
Where are we going next? When you talk about the depth of the AFC, in the NFC, in the beginning of the year, we talked about San Francisco, Philadelphia, and Dallas. That's kind of really been set in stone now, don't you think? I mean, who is next in line? I mean, there are other undefeateds, Atlanta, New Orleans, and Tampa Bay, but I don't think anybody is putting them in that category. It doesn't mean you have to be undefeated right now. You could look at one-loss teams as well, but I think there is such a hefty drop-off after those three teams, where the AFC obviously is a little bit of a different story.
I think the swing states are going to be twofold. It's going to be what happens with the top of the NFC North, with Green Bay and the Detroit Lions, right? What do those teams become as far as being able to challenge the upper crust of this conference? Because with Detroit, we know there's the expectations. We're still waiting to see about the defense overall as they've remade the secondary. But for them, and then Green Bay, Jordan Love early on here has been efficient.
Highest rated quarterback in the league.
Yeah. We'll see if they can match that efficiency with explosiveness as they go along, as this receiver core gets healthier. They've been without Christian Watkins for the first couple of weeks of the season. So we'll wait and see there. And then the other one is the Rams. I am really curious about this Rams team. Through 2 weeks, they've played 2 division games to start the season off. They got the win against the Seahawks in week 1 in a way people didn't expect. But part of me looked and said, all right, the Seahawks lose both starting tackles in the midst of that game here. It makes it a more fertile ground for that Los Angeles defense that's got young dudes that are stepping up here. Maybe I can wipe that away. It's week 1. And Matthew Stafford's back healthy, and that counts for a lot. But still, they don't have Cooper Kupp. Certainly this can't last. And then it was way closer than I expected against the 49ers the weekend after that, where they did not look thoroughly outclassed in that game from what I saw. And Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua all of a sudden start to look like, oh, these might just be consistently good players, especially with the target share that Puka's getting. And so now I look forward and say, all right, maybe the demise of the Rams was premature. Maybe they have done what seemed impossible. They've worked around the margins after spending and mortgaging draft capital and found a crop of young players around one of the better quarterbacks in the league when healthy that can actually make this work.
Now, I'm still not putting them in that upper category, but I agree with you. Who knew Puka and Tutu were going to be there? Puka, 35 targets in a couple of games. And even at running back, Cam Akers, it's been amazing. It's finally gone now. Last year, missing games for personal reasons. This year, missing games, and they finally trade him. And Kyron Williams, a former Notre Dame grad, is the guy out there running the ball now, as well as the wide receivers we were just talking about. A young team we thought rebuilding is doing way better than we thought they were going to do. So worth keeping an eye on. I think it eventually catches up to them of where they are with youth on this team. But the future can look pretty bright there.
I'm just saying we could be having a real frisky conversation about them next week. They're one of the teams playing on Monday night this coming week. They've got a Bengals team that is limping into this game right now. I'm just saying the stars are aligning almost perfectly from a narrative and from a football sense, right? You've got Joe Burrow, who's still quite literally limping into
around,
this. A Bengals offensive line that added Orlando Brown, but still want to see them continue to put the ball through the basket on that against Byron Young and some of those names alongside Aaron Donald on that Rams defensive front. It might line up football-wise and narrative-wise for them to get one of those primetime games where people all of a sudden look up and start considering the Rams in an NFC that's got a little bit more wide open field.
That would be something, because we're all expecting Cincinnati to bounce back, right?
Yes.
We've had the stats of Joe Burrow in the 4 years, 1-7 in the first 2 games. So coming out of the gate slow, he doesn't practice a lot for injury reasons or whatever reason, certainly doesn't play in preseason games. And then they come out of it and they become one of the best teams in the AFC. So we're still expecting that, because we're still in the point of the season where we've seen this song and dance before. But just as Jason Fitz was on a little earlier, and I wonder if others are thinking that way as well, there's a little, voice in the back of our head saying, could this be a down year for him, an up year for getting Lamar Jackson back? He's got his new deal, the strength of that team now in the AFC North. And could there be that lingering doubt that's starting to push a little more to the forward part of your brain for Cincinnati?
Just looking at DraftKings Sportsbook right now, the Cincinnati Bengals getting that home team 3-point favorite. And that's it right now, going up against the Los Angeles Rams on Monday night. And so that's officially one. If we want to go from, everything's fine to legitimate concern, Monday night feels like the primetime spot for some Tuesday overreaction coming up next week on GoJo and Golic. Coming up next, though, we're going to finish this off the way we always do with a little this, that, and the third, and an update on the most famous will they, won't they relationship in sports and pop culture. Next. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield here. We are getting ready to finish the show. Dad, I am getting ready to leave town.
Yes, you are.
I am not responsible enough to be around here for what's going to go down as Ohio State's coming into town against Notre Dame. It's been fun. Like, it's been cool being back. I haven't been back out at Notre Dame on campus during the season in like 3 or 4 years because of work. And so seeing everyone roll into town, seeing the college game day buses here and all the stages getting set up, it feels big again. And we got some of that my last year here at Notre Dame when I was a player.
Right.
And it's the best part about coming here. It's why you do all this stuff. But for me, it's also a reminder that there are real expectations here. And if we lose, I am going to
seeing
freak out.
Mike or texting with Mike during a Notre Dame game. Now, he'll be out calling Oregon and Colorado, which is 3:30 Eastern time.
Yes.
So you'll be done with that game, back in your hotel room watching Notre Dame. And by the way, he will not be watching it in a bar with a group of people because he will get arrested for damaging things if it doesn't go well for Notre Dame.
It's a little room service, a little alone time. Definitely.
Well, we have gotten texts, Jesse, from him about when he's in a hotel room after calling a game. Oh, the channel changer is destroyed. He would throw the channel changer against the wall.
I did that once. It was Notre Dame, Texas, 2016. I shattered a remote control.
This is like the pickleball paddle all over again.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go. It's exactly right.
Last year, Notre Dame was playing BYU in Vegas and threw an interception at halftime while I was in North Carolina State covering a game, and I slammed my fist on the table and yelled the F word and had to go back up to my booth in shame because a lot of other media members were looking at me.
Yeah.
No.
So you take it to heart. I'm glad you're not going to be here. You'll be by yourself, secluded. At least I think you will be. Maybe it'd be better if you were around other people.
I think I'm going to try and keep myself accountable around other people, but I will be drinking, and then the real issues start. We will see. Very excited for all you guys around here, though. It really is. It's such a unique animal, and Notre Dame is such a special ticket for so many people. I met like 3 or 4 people yesterday who said they were here on their bucket list trip, and this was a game they had circled and a campus they had circled, and everyone is going to get to see it at its absolute best.
And let me just say, Notre Dame fans who have tickets, don't sell your tickets to Ohio State fans. Don't do it. Don't do it.
I get his $5,000. Like I'll throw you like a 20 or a 50 or something like that.
I know it's tempting, but we'll help out.
Please don't do it.
We'll get a GoFundMe going for you.
Oh my God. In the meantime, let's finish off with this, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to send you off on into a great weekend with so much great college football and NFL action. Download, subscribe, rate, review.
Why don't you and Jesse do this first one?
All right. Yeah. Why don't we get in on this one here? And let's start this off with the relationship everyone's been talking about this week. Travis Kelce, Jason Kelce, happily married. Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. And Travis Kelce, the Chiefs star tight end, went on the Pat McAfee show yesterday and actually started talking about this for the first time that I have seen publicly. And this is what he had to say about his interactions with Taylor Swift.
It's life, baby. It's life. I threw it out there. I threw the ball in her court. And, I told her, maybe I've seen you rock the stage in Arrowhead. You might have to come see me rock the stage in Arrowhead and see which one's a little more lit. So we'll see what happens in the near future.
I was a little scared of where he was going to go of about rocking things. I was like, whoa.
That made me cringe. I'm not going to lie. It just made me cringe.
You know what? I feel like that's one of those things. I don't know if he actually said that, but it sounds good when you're saying it on the McAfee show there. A lot of people are judging him on that. Who really does have game anyway?
Yeah.
Like actual stone cold game. Like we're all just getting.
Ask your mother. I had game when her and I were dating. Come on,
do it.
I'm starting to. This becomes less and less believable to me the more that Jason and Travis collectively talk about it. Because I think if it was real, there would be a little more expectation of privacy when it comes to this. So maybe they're texting, maybe they saw each other one time, but I'm starting to not believe there's actually a romantic thing happening here.
Oh, I've never believed that. That's the one thing I want to make abundantly clear. I saw the reports, I think in the Messenger the other day from Taylor Swift's side saying, I believe they call it her fun girl era right now.
Yeah.
She's keeping it casual. She's keeping it fun. And that's always what I expected.
I think Travis would be fine with that.
Yes. I think that would be I think that's the perfect place for both of them to land. And so this is right where I've thought it's always been in the, hey, we're just having fun. We're talking a little bit and we'll see what happens and nothing more than that. And again, it is about the journey, not the destination. That is totally fine with me.
If I'm Taylor Swift and I see that Pat McAfee show clip, I'm getting the yucks real fast.
Oh, yeah.
The yucks.
There's going to be a lot of
Probably
girls
true.
on TikTok talking about the ick
Yeah.
after that one, I'd imagine. Speaking of the ick, Jesse, let's get to that and look at LaVar Ball turning to a new business venture with the Big Baller brand.
LaVar Ball back at it again with the business ventures. He is now selling exercise equipment. And just take a look at this promotional video that is now making the round on socials.
Hey, you got guys that can bench press 400 pounds, 300 pounds, but hey, they can't do 2 pull-ups. This is the real deal right here. So you got to get this set up for $18.50. You get the horizontal bar, your pull-up bar. We get your dip bar right here, and then we also got to get your push-up bar. Now, if you want to get a jump on that strength training, this is what you got to put in your yard. Go to Triple B Fabrication, and my guy will hook these up for you for $18.50. And I tell you what, you will have a good athlete, and the fact that you can start them off at 4 or 5 years old because they're dealing with their own body weight, so it won't stunt their growth. It's called isometrics. Get this set up if you want to invest in your kid and he want to be stronger than the rest. Triple B style. Go to Triple B Fabrication. Trust me when I tell you.
Guys, a flimsy 3-piece set, pull-up bar, push-up bar, dip bar, for $1,850, and you're supposedly buying this to then put your 4-year-old outside on it?
I mean, I'm all for shoot your shot, man. Right. And we know LaVar had been in the media for so long and then certainly had been away from it. I'm all about shoot your shot, but I mean, don't you have a little more yank where you can have a little better commercial than shooting a little home video in your backyard for some equipment that basically you could make or manufacture somehow on your own, that there would be a little more of a presentation or professional presentation for this?
I guess that's why it makes me sad. Like,
yeah,
this guy used to be cutting wrestling promos with Stephen A. Smith on First Take, and now he's slinging metal on a website in his backyard and charging like $1,850 for it. Like this, it just made me sad. We've already seen the weird workout videos of him and is it Jello, LiAngelo Ball working out there with the weights that look like the weights that Grandpa Lou had in your guys' basement.
Exactly.
There.
Yes. Yeah.
It just, first off, didn't seem safe there, so I'm glad this seems a little bit more above board. But it also is an important bodyweight workout. Very important. One of my favorite things I was ever able to do in my life when Brian Kelly and this new strength staff got at Notre Dame, they had a big emphasis on pull-ups. As a 295-pound guy, I could do pull-ups for the first time in my life, and nothing makes you feel more powerful than being able to lift your body up over that bar. So that part actually pretty cool from LaVar Ball. He might be onto something.
I wish I had my first of 10 shoulder surgeries senior year at Notre Dame and was never able to do any pull-ups. I never even tried. I wish I could, because it is cool, especially if you're a big guy, to be able to do a pull-up. Can't even get near it. Can't do pull-ups, can't do rope climbing, can't do anything. I feel like a failure.
Well, for $18.50, LaVar Ball will get you right on that front. Jesse, let's get to the third here.
Wow, this is amazing.
Speaking of defying age at every turn, Jaromir Jagr continues to beat off Father. Ooh, God, I can't say it like that.
No.
Beat back Father Time.
Thank you. Yeah, well done, please.
Oh, no.
Please, Jesse,
I'll
you go
just
ahead
jump
and
in. He's starting his 35th professional hockey season with Kladno of the Czech Extraliga, a team, by the way, which he is the owner of. And guys, he is 51 years old. He's 51. He spent 24 seasons in the NHL. He was 46 when he last played in the NHL. So he is still playing professional hockey at the age of 51. Can you even imagine? I mean, he can definitely do pull-ups.
Yeah, you can. And you can imagine, because one other guy did it. His name was Gordie Howe. Gordie Howe, in terms of age at retirement, he was 52 years old, Mr. Hockey was, when he played his last NHL game for the Hartford Whalers, and Hartford's still trying to get the Whalers back. Yeah, how about it? But Jagr, I mean, amazing. And so his Hall of Fame keeps getting put off, because he keeps playing professionally. So it keeps going, the 5-year wait keeps going and going further and further. But this guy just can't give it up. Played, 26 games last year, scored 14 points. But it is kind of wild when you're the owner and then you come down on the team and come down on the ice as well. who's taking you out in practice, right? I mean, who's practicing hard against you?
It conjures up images of Vladimir Putin when he would come down with like, the Russian national team, and he's going out there thinking he's nice and getting after it, and no one's going to step. Super producer Brandon Newman at his wedding wanted to go play pickup basketball the day before the morning of his wedding. It was the easiest I've ever seen anybody getting to the lane ever in my life. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend. Go Irish. We'll talk to you Monday.